All right, so what we're looking at is a clam, and it is a type of mollusk. And so we want to look at a couple things, or things that you need to know for this, is orientation. So if we're looking at this, you've got the dorsal and the ventral region. Then you have the anterior region and the posterior region. So how do I know the difference between these? So the dorsal closes at the clam right there. You can see this would be the dorsal region. The ventral is going to be to open it. The anterior side is the shorter side, or smaller, and the posterior is the larger side. So if I'm looking at the clam itself, I'm going to notice that the distance between the umbo, which is this distinguishing hump, to the edge of the clam is shorter on this side than it is on this side. So that tells me this is anterior and this is posterior. When you get inside, you can make reference to some of the anatomical structures that will help you lead to your positioning or orientation. So you can also see that there are some lines on here, and these deep grooves indicate how old the clam actually is, and these are called our growth rings. Remember, these are bivalves, so bi means two and valve means shell, and this little region right here is where the embryonic shell actually exists. So this clam has already been opened up and dissected, and what we can see here are these ridges, and these are our pseudo-cardinal teeth. They help to seal the clam and get a good seal on it. What we're going to look at here is a couple things. There's lots of sand particles inside of this clam, and it is covering up kind of the shiny region, which is the mother of pearl. That mother of pearl is actually secreted by this stuff right here, which is the mantle. This is that tissue. These are bilaterally symmetrical, so what you see on this side is what you're going to see on the other valve or shell. This is the mantle edge or mantle skirt. And then we have some muscle here, and we know that it's muscle because it frays, because those are the muscle fibers that you can see, similar to like what you would see if you were eating carnitas pork. This right here is called a scar, and so this would be the anterior and posterior adductor muscles. This would be the muscle, and this would actually be the scar itself. Let's put this aside and look at this one right here. So on this one, what we can see is this is the anterior region and this is the posterior region. That means that what's left here is going to be the anterior adductor muscle, and this would be the posterior adductor muscle. Again, running the probe over the top, you can see that it kind of frays a little bit. The mantle's kind of been removed, so I have this mantle skirt, and so what I want you to notice on the posterior region, as I turn this up to look at it, you can see that there's these openings, and these are the siphons. This is how water essentially enters and exits the actual clam. So this is the in-current siphon that I've inserted the probe into, and we know it's the in-current siphon, which is this structure right here, because it's closest to the ventral region. Next to the in-current siphon is the post-current siphon, or I'm sorry, the ex-current siphon, and it's also known as the exhalant. So those two words are used, in-current and inhalant, or ex-current and exhalant. So this right here is the exhalant siphon. So in-current, ex-current. The ex-current is more dorsally located, and this is where waste is going to exit. So what will happen is water will enter into the clam, and it will move over this region. Let me move some of that muscle out of the way. It'll move through this region of the clam, and as it moves through this region, it's going to pass over this structure, which is the set of gills. You notice the gills have these striations or lines on them. It will pick up any oxygen in the water so that it can do respiration, and then what will happen is it will pass it to these structures right here. So this structure, because again they're bilaterally symmetrical, will have a matching set on the other side. So if we lift this up, we look on the other side, here is the other one. It's not totally as intact, but these are the labial palps, and the labial palps labia means lip, and therefore these are the lips of the clam before the mouth, which is going to be in the center of the two of them up in this region. Okay, these are sensory organs, so they get to determine or sense the food that's been passed over the body. All right, so what we've done is we've cut off the foot, and this is part of that region. We cut off the foot, and you can tell the difference between the foot and the rest of the visceral mass. This would be the visceral mass up here, and this is the foot here, because the direction in which the fibers are moving. So you can see the fibers here running this way, and then the foot, they're going to run this direction. You can actually note that as you're dissecting the organism later. All right, you're going to bisect it, and as you've bisected it, you open it up and you see all these really interesting looking things inside. So inside you've got this large green structure, and the large green structure is the liver, and also known as the digestive gland. At the anterior region of this will be where the stomach and the mouth are. So up here in the front you can see that entrance or that hole. You might not clearly be able to see this on yours simply because you've bisected it and cut it in half, and if it's a hole it's just going to be an opening. Depending upon the specific species of clam, you'll be able to see some intestines more clearly than others, and some will be larger and some will be smaller. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the intestines on another clam. They're not as clearly seen here, but you can note that there is a small tube that runs right back here in that area. So the food's going to come in, it's going to pass through the stomach, which the digestive gland circles around or encases it. Then it's going to travel through the intestines, which kind of wrap down here, and then the intestines come back up to the more dorsal region of the clam. So we mentioned earlier that there were some muscles. There are some other muscles here, and you can see these muscles. Notice how they're a darker color here and here. These are part of the retractor muscles. So we have the adductor muscles and these smaller retractor muscles. The intestine, again, is going to lead up in this direction, and what we can do is we can pull back some of this tissue and we can unveil the heart. So this region right here contains the heart. Remember that they have an open circulatory system. So you can see that there's a tube right here, and then you can also see that's kind of green or darker in color there, and that is going to be the intestine traveling on the opposite side of the heart. So this region, this little bean, is the heart. And the open circulatory system, the heart contracts and helps to project fluids through the body as to transport nutrients, and in this case also waste. So the waste is going to travel through the intestine, and it's going to travel towards the anus. So it's going to lead around this posterior adductor muscle towards the excurrent siphon, and that leads us to expelling the waste from the excurrent siphon here that we saw earlier. Let's look at it on this clam right here, as they all kind of look a little bit different. So we turn to the side and we can see the incurrent siphon here because it's more ventrally located, and the excurrent siphon here because it's more dorsally located. We have the posterior adductor muscle, a retractor muscle, and the anterior adductor muscle. We have the mantle, which is this thin, smooth substance, right? And the mantle secretes the shell. We have the labial palps here, and these are the gills with the striations on them. We move it back and we have the foot here and the visceral mass here. When we open it up, again, we can see things like the intestines. So this region would be the intestinal region. And usually in this area too, you also see gonads. The gonads will be a cream color. Unfortunately, this clam nor this other clam that we're looking at have any gonads, so they're not ready for reproduction, but you would find them in this area. If you look at the other video, you'll be able to see them in it. Also note that the other video doesn't clearly show the siphons like I'm showing you in this one, so please note that as you're studying. So again, we have a heart, and here's the heart structure where it's going to pass waste. Remember the labial palps, so this is anterior. The intestines will come up here, travel this direction, around to the excurrent siphon, and then release waste in this area. And over here, if we kind of pull it apart a little bit, you can see more or less the area that it would come from. So this is going to be where the waste or the anus is going to release any products that it is expelling out of its body. All right, good luck.